This is the state they're usually in when we hoik them out of the canal. And this is Doncaster. And I somehow think I'm not going to be allowed to take that back to Sheffield. But they don't have to clean up lovely, as you've seen from the microbrewery. Right, should we go back to the boat now? Yeah. I filmed that yesterday in Doncaster, just to demonstrate how well these do scrub up. There's also, people have made a few questions about the legality of this, and I have had it checked out, mainly because some people will know my desire to avoid any run-in with the law. Because I've asked companies to get them and they've said no thanks, that's one thing. However, that was purely a courtesy. The reality is, because these come out of a canal, there's a definition of a canal which is sometimes slightly different to rivers. A canal which is navigable by ocean-going vessels is classed as a commercial waterway, a commercial navigation. Therefore, removing any detritus from it is classed as salvage and is actually encouraged, because if you're in a boat and you hit one of these with your propeller, it can be quite difficult. So pulling them out of the canal is encouraged. And as a courtesy, I do ask that previous legal owners, if they want them. They say no, but I don't have to. Pulling them out of the canal, it's salvage. Now, if I was to find one in the street, that could be classed as theft by finding. There is an offence of theft by finding. Yeah. Regardless of that, this is how well they scrub up. This is a very, very quick update on where we're at, because I've been away for a few weeks. The judge let me out, so no. And there was a few things I wasn't happy with. So for a start, I've put a tap or a ball valve on the Herms. I've put some elbows on all of the outlets here, purely because if there was an error, you don't want boiling wat coming straight out at you into your nether regions. If there was an error, if there was a problem, it's going to go down and just burn your feet. Or you should have quite good footwear on, as obviously I always do. So that was the first thing. Put a ball valve on the whirlpool. And now there's a couple of things about filtration. And some people know there's quite an ongoing discussion about filtration. And specifically the little Y filters like these, and which way they should be orientated. Anyway, so this was a good little idea from the BREW 69, which was to put the Y filter on a cam lock. Quite a good idea. I'm going with something slightly different. I'm still going to do that, but I'm putting a valve above it, and then another cam lock on top, so and get loads of stuff like this. But there's never exactly the right amount of the bits that you need, obviously. And then if that then bungs up, and I'll just show you my idea. If it bungs up on the chiller, just turn the valve off, take this out, take this off obviously, take this out, put a hose on there from the pump from the HLT, flush it out and bung it straight back on. Take a minute to do. If that's really gummed up, which they can be, then where fucking put it there. Essentially that's the only bit that needs swapping out. So let's swap it for this one, and then we have a spare Y filter housing. So that's the idea for that. It's a good idea to Harry Brew 69. The other thing was, for things like the Herms, etc., running the risk of bunging the pump up. That wasn't easy to say. I got this idea from a guy called Norfolk Hillbilly, I think, on YouTube. And I had not thought of the possibility of using an adapter. Oops. So it's 1/2" BSP to tri-clamps, tri-clovers. And this is a much bigger, more beefier filter. And his idea, which is perfect and brilliant, was you can take it from here on the, either on the sparge or on the Herms, because you don't want to bung your pump up. And then when you're done, you use it to transfer from here into the boil kettle. So that filters it into the boil kettle, and then when you're done, you filter it. Look at this one-handed. I'm almost like a professional. Then from here to the pump, up into the chiller, and again, so we've got that filter and then that filter as well. So that's all the filtration sorted out. Not really going to have a chance to play with this too much for the next couple of weeks, because we've got half-term friends coming next week, because it's half-term where they live. It's half-term here in Sheffield this week. We're away this weekend, and so not going to have too much of a chance to play. What I am doing again is just timing the HLT on full to see how long it comes up to the mashing temp, which I'm going to class as 72, possibly 73, don't know yet. Until we try it, there's not going to be any certainty. Last thing I'm going to do today is later on is calibrate this one. The last thing I was going to say was, very quickly, why am I doing this? Well, obviously to make beer, but also, more importantly, this is going to be one of the activities we're going to offer as a part of the MadeByMartyn stuff. Now, the MadeByMartyn stuff essentially is about, because all my working life really I've done stuff around well, health and education, hence the mad professor. Yes, I really was professor. Can you believe that? It's a strange old world, isn't it? Now, post-retirement, I wanted to carry on some of those projects, and two of the important areas that I've worked with, well, three of the important areas. The most important one is working with terminally ill cancer patients. There's some stuff on the MadeByMartyn website about that. The other is about providing support for people with both clinical and other forms of depression. Depression is kind of, for the mind, what cancer is for the body, and yeah, and there are things that we can do. The other area is around sex education. I worked very much in the mid-80s when HIV was a big issue. I worked with the NHS doing sex education stuff, and the reason I'm into sex ed still is because the greatest number of new presentations of HIV is amongst the over 50s and the 16 to 25s, but mainly the over 50s. Yeah, we should know better. But also, I think another part of the reason why I want to push ideas and strategies around sex ed is because if we don't educate our children, stroke grandchildren, about sex, then the internet will do it for us, and that should worry everybody. So that's the whole rationale about that MadeByMartyn. But this is an activity. Now the thing is, when you make beer, I'll be quick because I know this is going on. When you make beer, you've got about an hour in the mash tun and then an hour boil. Now that's a couple of hours where not an awful lot other to do than perhaps talk and drink tea, which is important. Talking is important, and especially blokes, but women also in a strange way. We always think women are are good at talking with each other. In fact, there's an old experiment called the waiting room experiment, where they put a group of women in a fake waiting room and a group of men, and a group of men sat there sort of like twiddling their thumbs, but within 5 minutes the women were all chatting away. But when it comes to personal things and deeply meaningful things, especially when it comes to our fears and our vulnerabilities, we don't like talking about that to others. But in a safe, controlled environment, perhaps it's one of the best things we can do. So 2 hours in order to safely talk, because this isn't about therapy or depression. This is about making beer. Get it? So that's the whole thing about the Made by Martyn stuff. That's why I do this, and it's important to me. And that's also kind of like why I'm using old beer kegs dragged out of a canal rather than going out and buying the SS Brewtech stuff, is because I can't afford it. And again, that's why, Malt Miller, please take note, that's why little things, like even like a 5% discount on an order of 110 quid or whatever, it makes a difference. And that's why I got angry with you last week. I mean, I love the Malt Miller. I think they're a wonderful lot. But petty little things like saying, well, no, you can't have another 5% discount when they've sent me a code. Don't know. Anyway, enough of that. That's why I do all this stuff. And that's why I... well, yeah, end of that. If you like this nonsense, please, because it helps, please consider clicking the little thumbs up likey thing, and if you want to follow all the various nonsense things I do, it would be lovely if you would subscribe to my channel. I'm getting really good at all this YouTube jargon now, and I'll put a link below to the video from, I'm sure it's Norfolk Hillbilly. Seems like a really sound guy, really kind of like inspirational. That, for the time being, until I get round to building the control panel, is going to be that. So I think we'll have this as the thumbnail, I think, for the video, shall we? Yes. So that's a quick update and why. Thanks for watching.